Today, I wanted to discuss Hunter S. Thompson and to do a quick review of his book, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, A Savage Journey to the Heart of the American Dream. But I'm not sure what I could say that hasn't already been said. I mean, it's hard to do an academic review on a book that was published almost 50 years ago and find something new to say about it. It's exceptionally difficult considering that I am not an expert on Hunter Thompson or an expert on narcotics, so I really can't speak about his gonzo writing or the LSD drug-induced pseudo-reality that Hunter lives in. However, I can say that people are still reading this book, and that alone should be a testament to the impact that both this book and Hunter Thompson has made to our society, our history, and perhaps even our modern culture. While doing research for my review, I was surprised at how difficult it was to find negative comments about Hunter Thompson as a person or about all of his accumulated work as a whole. There are people, of course, who do not like one or more of his publications, which only proves the old adage to be true that you can't please all of the people all of the time. But, in general, his collected works have been well received by his critics, and those that have negatively commented about this book in particular have also spoken very highly of his other writings. In fact, if you do a quick Google search for reviews of this book, you'll find that reviewers have two very extreme opinions. Either they love it or they hate it. Those that hate the book hate it because of the same reason, the drug culture. Those that love it fall into two subcategories. They either love it because they connect with the era Hunter writes about, which includes the drug culture, or they appreciate Hunter's ability to chronicle American stupidity, including the insanity of the drug experience. And I tend to fall into the latter category, as I think that that's what makes this book so brilliant. The drug-induced insanity of the book highlights the insanity of a so-called civilized culture, and to me, this book represents what every human being would degenerate to if they did not have to suffer from the consequences of their actions. I mean, who hasn't sat back and thought about doing something that would typically be considered insane by society standards, but failed to follow through with those actions because of their fear of consequences? And I think it's books like this one, or Clockwork Orange, maybe Fight Club, or Lord of the Flies, that allow us to remain in our protected safe spaces while living vicariously through the characters who refuse to be defined by society's restrictions or the consequences of their decisions. There have been a handful of authors who have been able to hold up this metaphorical mirror to their reading audience in order to reflect back to them their true identity and survive the wrath of their critics. Hunter S. Thompson is one of those authors, and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is that mirror. I approached reading this book with the mindset that Hunter Thompson and this book have a lot of hype that accompany both of them, and it probably won't live up to my expectations. So I read the book before doing any research, and from the opening paragraph, I was hooked. I could not put it down. I read this thing in one sitting, and I don't remember blinking or breathing the entire time. It's like watching a train wreck happen, and you can't take your eyes off of it for 1 second. And the entire time you're reading it, you're saying to yourself, there is no fucking way that just happened. I mean, some of the scenes' rationale and reasoning described in the book are 2 steps beyond insanity. For instance, they kidnapped a 14-year-old girl from the airport, fed her full of LSD, did God only knows what with her, as we can only assume with a completely naked and drugged up lawyer running around in the hotel room when Hunter arrived, that there was some sexual activity taking place before Hunter got there. And once Hunter did arrive, he and the lawyer in question openly discussed peddling her to district attorneys for $50 a head. But this is not the only outlandish, unbelievable, and over-the-top scene in the book. Instead, it's packed full of scenes that would almost make it impossible for someone in today's world to replicate in a new publication, which probably says something to why Hunter and this book have such a large following and fan base. As a historian, I found reading this book to be a unique experience. One of the things I found very interesting is that Hunter used a tape recorder to collect his notes, and those tapes have been published as the Gonzo tapes. So it's a unique experience for me to be able to read the book and then listen to the tapes that help to formulate the collected work, especially considering that there is an included editor's note stating that because of Hunter's self-imposed drug-induced mental break, the original manuscript was so splintered that they were forced to use the original tape recordings and transcribe them verbatim within the book. For me, being able to read the book and listen to the actual audio tapes that the book came from was almost as good as being in the car with Dr. Gonzo as he searched for the American dream. Although, I'm not sure if I would have survived the drug abuse or the LSD driven pseudo reality. Normally, I like to end my reviews with a summation of my ideas or thoughts and to make a recommendation as to who should read this book, but I don't know how to sum everything up into one paragraph, and I don't know who to recommend this book to, as everyone has probably read it by now, and if you haven't, you need to. I would like to remind everyone who does decide to read it to remember the time in which Hunter was writing the story and all of the events that were taking place during the period. For instance, we had men fighting and dying in Vietnam. The civil rights movement was coming to a close. The city itself was ran by mob bosses and funded by drug cartels. So the story wasn't just about finding the American dream, it was about the duality of American culture, the do as I say and not as I do mentality, which is still sadly prevalent today. So in closing, I would like to remind everyone of what the great Hunter Thompson once said.
The people who did this Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were good people. And it's a good place. Here we are in the middle of it, right up on the mountain. It's our country. It's not theirs. It's not a bunch of used car dealers from Southern California. Democracy, you have to be a player.